This is a 4-part step-by-step video series on how to practice scales. So these videos are for anyone who's struggling with their scales, if they're having trouble building speed or with evenness or clarity, or just want to improve their technique. So in each video we'll go through specific practice techniques that will build on each other. So go ahead and look out for those next few videos. So the first thing that's really important when practicing anything is to make sure that you have good sitting posture and good hand position at the keyboard. I have videos on both of those subjects, so go ahead and check those out if you need a refresher. Alright, so it's very important that when we play that we have no stiffness or tension. So we're going to start by trying to get rid of any kinds of stiffness or tension that might be in our fingers, hand, and arm. And really that's one of the keys, is we don't just play with our fingers, we play with the whole arm and hand and fingers together. So it's very important that when we play that we make sure that the arm is centered behind each finger as we go up and down the keyboard. So what we're going to start by doing is we're going to start by playing, and I'm going to use a C major scale. We're going to start by playing each note with a separate arm motion, and it's going to look like this. It's going to be the same coming down, okay? So what this is going to do is this is making use of gravity, okay? Because it's free, and it's going to harness the power of the weight of my arm naturally, okay? And it's also, like I mentioned, going to make sure that my arm is centered behind each finger as I move up and down the keyboard, okay? So let's talk about several things that you need to look for, okay? So the first thing is you want to make sure that your wrist is nice and straight, okay? So each time I play a note, I'm making sure that this wrist is nice and straight, okay? Now, I like to think of there being a straight line from my hand all the way to my elbow. See how this is nice and straight. We do not want to let the wrist drop down. This puts a tremendous amount of strain on the wrist, and we want to avoid that. So we want to make sure that that wrist is nice and straight the entire time. The second thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that our arm moves up with us, and this will help enable the arm to be centered behind each finger as we move up and down the keyboard. Okay, so when we move, we want to make sure that the arm is at a right angle to the keyboard, so it moves like this. And I'm doing more than an octave here so that you can kind of see that movement. We do not want to move like this. Okay, this is not at a right angle. We do not want to move like this. Both of those ways don't work well to make sure that that arm is always centered behind each finger. The third thing that you want to look out for is you want to make sure that your fingers are hanging loosely from your hand, okay? So if you just relax those fingers, they're just naturally hanging from the hand like this. So we don't want to play, lift, and pull the fingers. We want to make sure that they're just hanging from the hand like this. And the last thing you want to look for is you want to make sure that that wrist is nice and loose. There's a kind of buoyancy to the wrist that's important, and that will make sure that there's no tension as well. Okay, so altogether it's going to look like this. Now, you can practice this with all of the major and minor scales. My recommendation would be to start with the white key majors and slowly add the white key minors, and then go on to the black key majors and the black key minors. I have a couple of scale books that I use for my students. I'll put some links in the descriptions so that you can take a look at that. Most of the books kind of have an orderly way how they lay out learning the scales so that fingering groups are grouped together and scales have similar fingerings and whatnot. So, good luck with your practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.